Alrighty, so today we're going to be checking out this Instagram that was referred on Reddit, I believe in the mystery subreddit. Now, I vaguely remember the post. It was basically about, hey, this guy that used to do comedy on Instagram has kind of converted into a unexplainable phenomena. Obviously, you can see comedy right here. He goes by the name of Lucas Please. I've messaged this person before about his situation, wishing him high hopes, because what he's going through is not funny. I've only seen a handful of these stories. Pause the video real quick. There are some stories I didn't watch because it was just background story that I didn't feel was important to the story, just pretty much background information of how the story starts. So if there's more information you're seeking, go on Instagram, you will find it there. But let's check out the post real quick. So it's basically repeated posts with different grammatical changes. So it's very odd. It has something to do with the audition of Breaking Bad or something like that. It's just super random, jarbled mess. And then he has something right here talking about people being mean to him in the comments. Somebody sent him this photo. Somebody sent him this photo. Somebody sent this photo as well. And he slowly started to descend into madness. Now, we are going to read we're going to read his stories in order so we can actually see his story for what it is in his eyes. Let's start. Alrighty, so a bit of a backstory before the story actually begins. About 5 years ago, my sister and I moved out of our parents' house. My parents really wanted us out, but they meant well. Okay. They wanted my sister and I to become independent ever since we were teenagers. What? We found a big place that was a bit expensive, but Dad was willing to pay for it, with the condition that my sister and I use our own money for everything else: food, appliances, furniture, etc. This sounded like a great deal to us. Me and my sister were very thankful. I didn't have a job at the time, but my sister did, so she had some money saved up. My sister and I were very happy living together in this beautiful house. After 3 years living together by ourselves, my sister moved out to live with her then fiance and got married shortly after. After she moved out, it took a few days for me to get used to living by myself. I had a steady income at the time, so it wasn't a huge change, but the house felt lonely. I decided to adopt a dog. I've been living with my dog for about 2 years, and I don't know what I would do without him. This house would feel so empty. So before moving out of my parents' house, I believed that living by myself would be fantastic. I mean, Mom and Dad wouldn't be breaking my balls all day long, and I could do anything I ever wanted, whenever I wanted. And I had the freedom to have people over and not worry about noise complaints from the old man. And my sister moved out, and I realized it would be a spare room in the house, and I asked if it would be okay if I sublet her room so I can make some extra cash on the side. At this point, I was a bit desperate for money. I was let go of my previous job and not getting paid as much in my new one. She said it was perfectly fine, so I decided to go through with it. I didn't use a website like Airbnb for this. Instead, I started asking my close friends if they needed a place to stay. If they knew someone who did, I was subletting the room for a reasonably cheap price. But these guests only stayed for a couple nights, mostly weekends, so it wasn't very feasible for me to make good money. I did make some good friends right from the get-go though. This went on for a while, and eventually, about 6 months in, people started renting the room for longer periods of time. And slowly but surely, people started looking for me when they needed a place to stay. All of a sudden, the house didn't feel so lonely anymore, which was what I really wanted, I guess. After a year in, however, business started dwindling. Less and less people contacted me to rent the room, and the house felt lonely again. This went on for a while, and again, I was a bit desperate for money. All of that changed after I met my final guest. I call him that because I never got his name. This happened about 8 to 9 months ago. I went out with some friends to a local bar we frequent quite often. It is filled with the internationals and people who visit from other states, so we like to go there quite often to meet new people. After a couple of hours, once the liquid courage had finally seared in, a group of people approached my friends and I. There were 5 of them. 2 women, 3 men. They were very friendly and seemed like a nice bunch to party with. And they offered us a free round of drinks, so obviously we felt like kings. I started talking to one of the girls. in the group, and I asked them where they were from. She said they were from out of state and were visiting for the weekend. We chatted for a while, drank some more, and danced some more. Everyone was having a great time. We stuck around with this group for a few more hours. It was a very fun night. As it was coming to a close, I asked this girl if she or any of her friends needed a place to stay for a pretty cheap price. At this point, I felt like we were lifelong friends. As you have 10 shots of vodka flowing through your body, she said no. They were staying at a nearby hotel. However, she mentioned that one of her close friends was visiting in about a week. He was short on money and was having a hard time finding a place to stay. As I said, business was not so great, so I was desperate for money. I was drunk as well, so I thought to myself, if this friend is anything like this group of people, I'd love to have him over and even offer him a discount. So I told her, he can stay with me. I'll even offer him a discount. She told me he'd be staying for 2 weeks, and I told her what the price would be. She seemed really pleased. I asked her to give me his number so I can contact him and set up the dates and look at logistics. She told me his phone was not working or something, so she asked for mine. I gave it to her. She told me she'd let me know the exact dates, said our goodbyes, and she left with her group of friends. After a week later, I got a text from her. She told me her friend would be arriving the next day. It was a bit short notice, but the room was available, and I replied with, sure. The next day, he didn't arrive, so I texted the girl and asked if he was still coming. Again, I was desperate for money. She says yes, and that he'd be arriving the following day 100%. And she specifically asked me to leave the door open. I didn't respond to that as I found that a little bit odd. Yeah, no shit, dude. So it's 5 p.m. on the next day and nothing. 7 p.m. and nothing. I text the girl asking if he was still coming, and I received no answer. Finally, around 9 p.m. I hear the doorbell ring. I open the door and I am met with a scrawny dude, but pretty average looking. He seemed cool, I guess. I greet him and say something like, finally, welcome. I tell him my name, but he simply smiles while staring at me and says nothing. Already, I think to myself, not much of a talker. I help him with his luggage. We enter the house and I show him the room he'd be staying in. I then ask if he needed anything or wanted some dinner, but he simply smiled and closed the door. I think to myself, at least I was getting paid. The first few days were fine, I guess. He didn't leave the room much, unless it was for lunch or dinner, and he didn't utter a single word to me. I tried approaching him multiple times in a friendly manner, but he mostly just stared at me and smiled intently. I don't know if he was trying to be mysterious, but he just felt a bit off, as I'd never met anyone who behaved that way. But maybe he was just an introverted creep, I thought at the time. A couple days later is when things got a bit annoying. I go to bed as I normally do, at 2 to 3 a.m. I am suddenly awakened by this screaming loud music. I literally pooped a little bit. It scared the shit out of me. Literally, I pooped. I opened the door to my room and furiously marched to his. As the music grew louder and louder, I didn't realize how loud it was until I opened his door. It was terribly loud and annoying death metal or black metal music with absolute no rhythm or melody. Hey dude, speak for yourself, you fucking normie. Anyways, look, I don't judge people by their taste in music, but at this time of night, this was unacceptable. He was just sitting on the floor listening to these people screaming with music in the background at 2 or 3 in the morning. I looked at him with piercing eyes, hoping for an explanation, but he only stared back at me and smiled. Jesus, that smile. I hated that smile. It pisses me off. I said something like, hello, what is the matter with you? It's 3 a.m. You can't be playing music loudly at 3 in the morning. I couldn't even hear myself. Hello? Do you understand what I'm saying? Turn the music off. Again, he kept looking at me with a weird smile all throughout. We have neighbors. I have to wake up early to go to work. Turn it off. He finally turns to his cell phone, which was working perfectly fine by the way, and shuts the music off, all while staring at me and smiling. Thank you, I yelled. I went back to my room and tried to sleep, only to be awakened not 20 minutes later to the same exact music. This is when I realized he was messing with me or just trying to get a kick out of me. I was furious. As I said before, I desperately needed the money, so I simply slept through the music and tried to ignore it, but deep down I couldn't take it any longer. The loud music went on for a couple days, and I was now convinced this guy was a bit nuts. I didn't want to confront him anymore or get the cops involved. I just wanted to wait until he left so I could get paid. However, the next few nights, things got worse. I was again scared awake at about 2 or 3 in the morning to the same absolutely horrid music along with the most terrible smell I've ever encountered. I honestly thought I had shit my pants again. After I came to my senses, I knew it had something to do with this creep. That was it. I barged into his room and almost threw up when I opened the door as the smell was penetrating. The best I could describe it as would be rotten, raw, near mixed with burnt shit sewer juice. I don't even know, and I yelled at him. Admittedly, I was a bit of a dick here, as I told him he was a filthy creep and an absolute lunatic. Are you an idiot? Are you deaf? Answer me, what the hell is this smell? And guess how he reacted? By smiling and staring intently at me once again. You know, as you do in a normal conversation with another person, right? What a creep. I walked over to the music and turned it off. I was almost getting used to the smell until I lost it and screamed at the top of my lungs to get the hell out of my house. I left the room immediately, called my sister so she could speak some sense into me. After a while of chatting, she eventually calmed me down. But not 10 minutes later, he turned the music back on, even louder than before. My sister could hear it through the phone, and I had to yell for her to hear me. She implored me to sleep through it, not to do anything stupid, and asked him to leave the next day once I was a bit calmer. If he didn't leave, I was going to call the cops. As always, I followed my sister's advice. I barely slept through the night, partly because of the music, mostly because of the smell. The next morning, I went to his room and I calmly told him that he had the rest of the day to pack his things and leave. Again, he just stared at me and smiled. The smell had completely gone away at this point, so at least I had that going for me. I told him there were security cameras around the house and if he tried anything stupid, I would call the cops. I then left for work, hoping he would be gone by the time I come back. I come back from work late at night and immediately went to his room. He was gone. The place seemed clean. You cannot imagine how relieved I was. Until I went over to my bedroom, opened the door, and realized my bed sheets were missing. I went into my bathroom and realized he also taken my used towels. Like, what? Why? Why would anyone steal something like this? He took no jewelry, no money, no cards, nada. Only my used towels and bed sheets. I immediately went back into my sister's room, the room he stayed in, and after I took a closer look, this is what I saw. I will reenact the scene. Oh, there's no audio. That room is so, like, I can just see him sitting right there with the music on. I can just see it. Until I get there, I placed a mat there after this happened. Look at what he did to the floor. What the fuck? He literally scratched the floor up completely. Okay. That is weird. Oh, and also the door was scratched too. Did he do this with his nails? I don't even know. Huh. At this point, I'm really pissed off, but everything else seems in order until your room. Oh, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do. Oh. What the hell is that? It's like a horn. It's like a horn. What the? What? It seems to be some sort of an animal horn with eyes and a smile and a chain and balls. Hey kids, do you want to listen to death metal at night scratching the floors? It had some tiny hairs inside the holes. I'll use my flash to show it better. What the? Well, I mean, that's possibly natural due to the horns. I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to sound fucking smart. And it has 12 tally marks carved into the bottom. Well, buddy, I guess you were number 12. That's my guess. closer look. Is he gonna show the hair? Like, what? Dude, why does that look like a rejected demonic VeggieTales character? What is this? What hairs? Oh.
Like there, you can see a hair. Really way in the back, you can see a little hair.
Anyway, I figured this was some sort of shitty art project the guy was working on, and I decided to keep it. It seemed like a fair trade. The asshole literally destroyed my property, so I took his little art project. It wasn't technically stealing. Before you berate me, he left it there. Anyway, after that day, I blocked his friend's phone number, the girl I met on the night out who introduced me to this asshole in the first place, as she wasn't answering my text. I also stopped subletting the room and rearranged it to how it was when my sister lived there. House feels pretty empty again, but at least I can sleep in peace. I mean, look at it. It's kind of fucked up on the top right. Where you see? So he probably used it to carve into the house, which keeping this probably did something ritualistic that he shouldn't have done. He should have not kept this. He should have burned this thing. I would have burned any remnants of that creep. Why would you want any memories of this guy in your house? Alright guys, just so you know, I recorded this all at once. It's about an hour long, so it's a long story, so I'd rather give y'all pieces of the story in the way that he intended the stories to be read. So this is part 1 of his Instagram stories. Part 1.5 and point 2 will be uploaded tomorrow. So thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good day. Peace.